Hi everyone, Jamie Vaughn here with Beth Guckenberger. We wanted to introduce Beth with you because she's going to be joining us every week on CCM and Singing News talking about reckless faith. Hi Beth, thanks so much for coming by and talking to us today.
Oh, thanks, Jamie. Thanks for having me.
You are very welcome. Now you are an author, a speaker, a wife, a missionary, and a mom of 11. That is amazing, amazing, amazing. How are you balancing all of that?
Oh, you know what, Jamie? I always say that the word balance, it's a falsehood because if I look good physically, you should see my house. And if my house is put together, I probably haven't showered. And if I'm killing it at work, someone else is taking care of my kids. And if I'm killing it at home, I blew off my work. So balance is kind of crazy. I prefer the idea of rhythm, and I just try to have a rhythm that makes sure all the first things get done first. And probably the second things will never get done, but that's okay. There's a lot of prioritization happens on any given day.
I like that because I don't have any balance either, and I don't have any. So I completely get the rhythm thing there. Now you left this really comfortable life in America to move to Mexico and become a missionary. What was that like?
At the time, it felt a little bit like a magnet was pulling me there. Like even when I was resistant to it, I could still feel that pull against us. And so there was this sense that there was something going on written by someone bigger than me. There was a bit of an adventure to it. So there were a lot of challenges we had in the first year. I'd never been so hot before because I was from Ohio and I was living in a desert in Mexico. I got pregnant with a baby I wasn't planning on and delivered it in a country I didn't speak the language. Like lots of challenges that first year. But I realized how fun it was to get to kind of the end of myself
Uh-huh.
and to feel God come through in ways he would have done in Ohio. I just actually had never asked him to do it that way before. So once I kind of got a hit of what that felt like to have a spiritual journey with the Lord where I really needed him every day, every minute, every hour, then I didn't even care about the geography. That's the life I wanted to live.
And what was it like bringing a baby up in Mexico as opposed to what we would be considering a normal childhood in America?
Yeah, I used to say to the kids, man, there's a cost and benefit to the call that God has on your parents' life. And the mama instinct in me wants to protect them from all the cost and just give them all the benefits. But that's not even real life. So sometimes when things would be hard, they'd be sharing their parents with more people than they wanted, or we had to put somebody else in the back seat with them, or whatever it might feel like it cost them on any given day. They missed a soccer game. I would just acknowledge that, acknowledge that that was hard, not try to pretend or reframe it. And we would just sit in it. And I now, they're young adults, and I feel like they have an understanding that walking with God is not always rainbow and unicorns,
Mhm.
but even in the moments when it's not going the way you like it and you can't change it, He's present in that, and grows and gifts and blesses in the midst of it. So there was all kinds of teachable moments during those years.
You and your husband run Back to Basics, and it's an orphan care ministry.
Yeah, absolutely. We are in 9 locations around the world. And back to back is the idea is that we would stand alongside of nationals who are doing really, really great work with orphans. And we would, um, you know, support what they are up to and come alongside. And what I've realized over time is it means I have people in different countries that literally feel like they're family to me because we have stood back to back and we have fought for the orphan and vulnerable child in those settings. And yeah, it's helped me realize that 1 plus 1 doesn't have to just equal 2. That when you kind of come alongside of each other, it's a multiplication problem, not an addition.
So, what's some of the work that you're doing in these countries?
Yeah, so for some, we say we provide care for today and hope for tomorrow. So care for today is kind of all the things you think of when you think of orphan care. Think like protein and education and, good quality adults that are trained to take care of kids, like all the things you think of about orphan care. The hope for tomorrow is really twofold. have a trajectory for all the kids that we serve in the different countries that we're in to go all the way to the farthest levels of education they can. So for many of them, that's through college, making them the vast minority in their countries of college educated. And then we do trauma training where we help address some of the emotional expense that being an orphan has been for them, where they might have, where they might need to grow and heal in their emotional healing. So yeah, those are the two tools that we use underneath the umbrella that God loves them and has a plan.
Now, through your orphan care, is this how you ended up with 11 children?
You know what? I think God put an adopted baby in my heart a long time before I even understood what that meant. Our first adoption was 22 years ago. He was an infant son from Mexico. Since then, we've adopted a set of twin adolescent girls. I adopted a 12-year-old boy. Adoption is a calling. And so it's always been a moment where God in Technicolor put an opportunity in front of us, and we had a choice like any other calling to trust him in it and move towards it, or to run away from it.
How did reckless faith come about for you?
Yeah, reckless faith, it all, like my whole missionary journey, my whole decision to live that kind of way journey actually happened when I was in high school. I went on my first mission trip, and after that mission trip, I came back and organized a really large clothing drive for a refugee camp in Costa Rica. And the day of the clothing drive, I realized that, now someone pointed out to me actually, that I didn't have any plan, and I had made no provision for the shipping it would cost to send basically people to use clothes from Ohio to another country. And my father paid the freight on those 189 boxes.
Wow.
I don't even think twice about it. I mean, that night I just couldn't even go to bed. I now know there's a better way to spend to spend that money. But at the time I was just like, I saw a need somewhere in the world, and I was able to participate in a meeting of that need. Years later, 10 years later, when I was an adult and now doing work in another country, and I recognized what that freight must have been, I called my mom and was like, what were you guys thinking? That was crazy. And my father had passed away in that 10-year period of time. So I didn't get to ask him that question, but she testified to me that day he had woken up with a prompting in his spirit to invest in me at all costs. And so I think about, today in that great cloud of witnesses, whatever amount of money he spent that day at the Mainville post office has had a pretty big return on that investment. And sometimes we do things because God asks us to do them, even if they don't make sense to you or anybody else watching. And I'm sure when he wrote that check, he could think of all the ways he could have spent that money. But I think that's part of having a reckless faith, where you just really listen to one voice and you follow where it is it leads you.
And when I've been watching your videos that we will be airing, and you come across with a sureness and a confidence in your faith. I don't think a lot of us have. I know I don't have. I would hope that I would, but sometimes I feel like I fail constantly. How do you have that reckless faith in your life and just take that step forward?
I was just reading this week, really for the first time I can remember, although I've read through the Psalms, so I had to have read it at some point. But I was reading Psalm 85, and in it, the psalmist is saying to the Lord, restore us, revive us, and show us. And I was thinking, like a kid to a dad, our kids ask us, like, can I have $5? Can I borrow the keys? Can I watch another show? Can I stay up later? Like, they ask things of us, totally confident in that parent-child relationship and that we're for them and want to give them good things. I think in the same way, we as the children of God have the ability to ask God with boldness and confidence, can I have $5? Can I stay up a little bit later? Can I borrow your keys? And he wants to answer those questions for us. In fact, he loves a good question asker, even if our questions sound like confusion or challenge. God loves a good question asker. So really my reckless faith has been developed through asking good questions and expecting him as my dad to answer me.
I love that. What do you want our audience to gain from these weekly messages?
I have two goals always. I'm always thinking to myself, be more truthful than impressive. I don't necessarily need them to even remember anything about me. I want them to hear truth. I want them to be truthful with each other. And I want to spark conversations of substance. My hope is that when they finish listening to one of those moments, that they tell someone about it, and that it makes them begin to have a line of conversation that they wouldn't have had otherwise. I want believers to exchange with each other, the things they're growing and wondering and learning and sensing that God is saying to them.
Well, Beth, I can't wait to see the response that we get through sharing your reckless faith. And for anyone who would like to donate to Back to Back Ministries, how can they do that?
Yeah, they can find us online at backtoback.org, and we would love to help them steward those resources in a way that creates maximum impact for orphaned and vulnerable children around the world.
Beth, thanks so much for talking to us today. I really, really appreciate it.
No, thanks, Jamie, for having me.
No problem.